Good morning. Welcome to Adaptive Chicago Productions. I'm your host, Kenneth Borst, and today I wish to familiarize you with an organization known as the National Federation of the Blind. I don't know how much the viewing audience knows about this organization. I'm assuming probably not very much, and I'm anxious to get that information out there. Helping me do that today is my guest, Denise Avant. Denise, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mr. Borst. I'm glad to be here. I appreciate you inviting me on your program to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is the National Federation of the Blind. The National Federation of the Blind was founded in 1940 in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, and we will be 80 years old this year. We have 52 affiliates, including the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico. And of course, the Illinois affiliate is one of those affiliates, and I am privileged to be the president of the Illinois affiliate.
Please tell the viewing audience what are your primary responsibilities?
My primary responsibilities are to promote the work of the National Federation of the Blind of Illinois, make sure that our programs are functioning smoothly, to go out to the public and talk to people about blindness, and basically to just educate the public and advocate on behalf of blind people. We, as an organization, have over 50,000 members nationwide, and we are the largest consumer advocacy group in the United States, and we are the largest consumer advocacy group within the state of Illinois. So we do advocate for blind people individually and the blind community as a whole.
So tell us about some of the programs that the National Federation of the Blind has.
Well, we have many programs. Our programs here in Illinois center around children and young adults and college students. So one of our biggest programs that we've had for the last 7 years, now going on 8, is Braille Enrichment, Literacy, and Learning. And we have a program both in Springfield and in Chicago. It's BELL is the short form of it, but we expose children between the ages of 4 to 12 to Braille instruction. These are children who are blind or visually impaired, and either they're not getting any Braille at all, or they need to brush up on their Braille skills. We also show them how to experience the world of arts and crafts through touch, which is basically a non-visual means. We show them how to use the long white cane. We take them out on travel excursions, which they are to have a long white cane for travel purposes at all times. For example, one of their big visits was going to White Sox Park this past summer and getting a chance to run the bases, exploring the home plate area, the outfield area, all of those kinds of things. We do age-appropriate things, so the kids have to make their own lunches, because after all, if you have a brother and sister at home and they're making their own lunch, then why can't a blind child of the same age make his or her own lunch? Then we have our program that we call Freedom Link, and this is a mentoring program for teenagers who are in junior high, starting in 7th grade, going up to the 12th grade. And we meet at the Harold Washington Library on the 4th Saturday of each month. They are mentored by blind mentors. We are very strong on making sure that all of our programs have blind people as role models. We go out on travel excursions, again, taking public transportation here in the city of Chicago, going to restaurants, stores, and museums, just exploring the city. And it just lets blind teenagers understand that they can go about the city and go any place that they want using public transportation. So we have that program. Then we have a scholarship program where we award scholarships here in the state to people who are pursuing either a 2-year, a 4-year, or postgraduate degree. You can qualify for the scholarship program if you are a resident of Illinois or if you will be attending school in Illinois. We have a national program that gives away 30 scholarships to legally blind students, and I want to emphasize that, to legally blind students who are attending school here in the United States. But as I said, we do have one for a state program for kids here in the state of Illinois. We, several years ago, we started an internship program. And it's really designed for resume building and to build skills in the job market. And so what happens is either a college or high school student might have a career idea in mind. And so what we do is have them go out and maybe intern at, let's say, like your studio here. And then we pay them a stipend. And they can work for up to 240 hours for the entire program. They can do it overtime. They can, however long it takes them, that's what they'll have. We had a young lady just this past summer. She interned over at the Chicago Lighthouse. Now, she's not a college student. She has a high school education, and she just wants to get a job. So we used our internship program to help her build her resume. So when she goes out to search for a job, she'll have something on her resume. We have many programs at our at the national level. Our national headquarters is in Baltimore, Maryland, and we have a free white cane program where people can get a free white cane. We have something called Braille Reading Pals for a parent of a blind child to read books in Braille. It's a Braille and print book, and the parent is...
the Twin Vision books.
Yes, it's exposing the child to Braille and showing that it can be fun at a very young age. Then we have an early explorers program where the child is given a cane and the parent is encouraged to have the child, use the cane, explain what the cane is for. And this is really a very important thing because it's hard for people to pick up a cane and learn to use it and accept it. And if we find that if a child can learn to use a cane at an early age, that child is much more willing to use his or her cane in all circumstances. We're very big on Braille literacy. We have a contest we call Braille Readers Are Leaders, and it is a program where from December 1st to about the middle of January, students K through 12 and blind adults compete for prizes by reading as many Braille pages as they possibly can. We in the National Federation of the Blind know that Braille is essential. It is found that those who read Braille are 90% more likely to be employed in a job. I can say that being an attorney, Braille really helped me in my job. I
That's
don't
wonderful.
know what I would have done without it. It would have been very difficult if I had not received Braille instruction. And even here in Illinois, we do a program for adults. It's called Literacy is for Everyone. It's basically it's like a book club. And what the people do is they call in on a conference call, and either on Friday or Sunday, they read to each other in Braille, because we find that you're most likely to learn Braille and correct your mistakes if you have to read it out loud in the learning process. So those are some of the many, many programs that we have in the National Federation of the Blind. All of our programs, we want to raise expectations among blind people, the public, and any other group that we can.
And that's because lowered expectations serve as our biggest barrier. Isn't that true?
That is true. Many people in the public can't imagine a blind person traveling, a blind person sitting down at a computer and checking email and typing a letter, using adaptive equipment. But the public does not comprehend that a blind person can take care of daily living needs, such as cooking and laundry and grocery shopping.
Oh, I know that's true. I'm 66 years old and have been blind since day one. And, I can tell you that's absolutely the truth. And when I was a child, I'm originally from Hammond, Indiana, and we belonged to an organization called the Calumet Council for Blind Children, and it was an organization of families and teachers of blind children and families that had blind children in it. And I can recall my mother telling the story many times over the years. When I was a year and a half old, we were at our Christmas party for the Calumet Council for Blind Children, and I was sitting just adjacent to other children who were blind, and my mother placed a paper plate of candy in front of me, and I picked up a piece of candy and started eating it. And this lady whose child was sitting across from us couldn't believe what she saw. She dropped her purse and everything fell out of it. And my mother asked her what her problem was. She says, "Bertha, how did you do it?" How did I do what? Well, the upshot of that one was she thought this woman her child was the same age as I am, but she was still feeding him strained baby food because she thought because her child was blind, if he couldn't see, he couldn't chew. He had to be shown how to chew. And so she said, "How did you do it?" And my mother said, "No, I didn't teach him how to chew. Chewing is a conditioned reflex, Ruth. You should have known that." I just, thought I'd include that because I've told that to many people. I wanted to ask you some questions about the Bell program and also the Freedom Link program. How many children are involved in each one of these programs?
Well, in our Freedom Link program, we've had as high as 12 in both Springfield and also Chicago Bell. We start taking applications in April. And by the way, I do want to say that information about all of our programs can be found on our website at nfbofillinois.org. But we start taking applications in April and May for both the Springfield and the Chicago program.
I was thinking that many times over the years I've met a lot of blind people whose families didn't accept them because they were blind. There have been things like being made to go down to the basement. I knew somebody that was made to go to the basement of their home when when guests came over to the house. And that's what her parents made her do. And for many, many years, she thought that was the normal thing. And I don't know when finally she got the reality check that woke her up. But yes, and I recall it when Mark Maurer, our last president, was president. He wrote an article in the Braille Monitor, our monthly newsletter, about a case he was investigating in Tennessee, where there were two boys who were identical twins. They were blind. They had been since day one. And their family kept them confined to their bedroom. I don't know how that situation was finally resolved, but or if it ever was, but he had investigated it, and these two boys could only come out like long enough to eat a meal, go to the bathroom. That was it. They were relegated to their bedroom, just the two of them in their bedroom. So the reason why I bring that up is to ask, do you find a lot of resistance with either Braille or cane usage among the parents of these children?
No, I mean, when parents come to us, they're looking for something. They're searching for something. They are wondering, they don't, oftentimes they don't realize the possibilities for their children. They have lowered expectation, but they know that something can be done to help their child. But we raise the expectations. So for example, this past Saturday, we put on a career day program for the Freedom Link students. And we actually, normally we don't invite the parents into the day when we're doing Freedom Link activities. But this past Saturday, we wanted the parents to come and be a part of the career day, because we wanted them to understand that their child could have any career that he or she wanted. So we had Steve Pangier from Pangier Construction. He owns his own company, and he is blind, and he's been very successful in his endeavor. We had a woman who works at the library, and she takes care of all the books at the West Pullman branch. We had two students who are, one of whom I know is seeking a degree in social work. So, and then we had a gentleman who was the mayor of his small town in Iowa. So we wanted to show the parents by example that there are no limits on your child because of his blindness. Blindness is not going to hold your child back. And so we're seeking to raise the expectations of the parent for their child and of the child for himself, because we want blind children to grow up and be poised and confident and know that they can live and lead the lives that they want. Our parents, learn a lot when they learn that there are several lawyers in the National Federation of the Blind of Illinois and as well as across the country who happen to be blind. We have our first vice president, Debbie Stein, is a noted children's author. And we have another woman who runs her own business as part of the Business Enterprise Program. So our parents see all of this. So we're able to raise expectation. Now where we're, doing, and one of the reasons why I'm doing this program with you today is to reach out to parents who may not know about the National Federation of the Blind.
I was going to ask you about that. The children who are currently in the Bell program and in the Freedom Link program, how did you find these children?
Well, what we do is every year, depending on what the program is, we send out information to teachers, to other blindness agencies, to newspapers, any outlet, as well as by word of mouth that we can find explaining what our programs are. And one of the questions you asked me is how many Freedom Link students. Right now we have 8 Freedom Link students in our program, and that is basically a year-round program. We start in October and we run it all the way to the end of August. And so in the summer months, we start sending materials out to the teachers of the visually impaired to pass along to the parents. Today, one of our members, or 2 of our members, I should say, are going out to the Addison Trail High School, where there are a number of blind and visually impaired students, to talk about what we do and what's available for students.
That's really good because, you know, I know that I was speaking with Robert Hansen, another NFB member recently, and he mentioned that when he was on his way to work, he saw a young boy who was blind, who was possibly in 5th or 6th grade, traveling to school independently with the long white cane. And it really warmed my heart to hear that, because I guess in the age of progressiveness, I'm hoping that this is what's happening, is that we're having fewer and fewer problems with parents who don't accept their children. Also, I wanted to ask you about the internship program. How many people that have gone through internships were able to secure permanent gainful employment?
Well, right now it's too early for us to tell, because in a couple of instances where we have had college students, they're still working on their degrees in college. I know that we had one woman, she is a musician, and her desire was to teach at a Montessori school. So a few summers ago, when she was still a sophomore in college, we sponsored her to teach at a Montessori school over in Hyde Park, but she's still getting her education but she'll have something on her resume to show. This is what I did with my summer, because she did it for 8 weeks. And the young woman who we sponsored at the Lighthouse, she is still searching for a job, but this is most recent. So we expect that and hope that she will have a job soon.
Yes, that would be great if she could. And you have continued efforts to reach out to more people for the internship program and to more children for the Bell and Freedom Link?
Yes, because as I said, we send to all of our mailing lists, to other blindness agencies. All of this information is on the website at nfbofillinois.org. We have a Facebook page. You just search for National Federation of the Blind of Illinois on Facebook. We have a Twitter page at NFBI, where people can learn about the programs, because we use every media outlet that we possibly can to advertise these programs.
Yeah, that's wonderful. This is wonderful. There's a lot of good news here. I also wanted to ask you a couple of questions personally about your own experience as an attorney. Was it difficult? Was it difficult to deal with cases where you had to view evidence? Did you have problems with people second guessing you and automatically assuming you couldn't do it?
Well, I think that, initially, you have to prove to people that you are up to the task. And the way you do that is by knowing, in my case, the law, knowing your case, being able to, I was a appellate and post-conviction attorney. So, writing your briefs or your memos and arguing in court and convincing the judge that you knew what you were talking about. Because that's the only real way of getting past some of the initial skepticism that a person may have, is to show that you know what you are doing. And I actually retired from the public defender's office 2 years ago. I worked there for 30 years, and before that, I was an attorney at the Will County Legal Assistance Program out in Joliet. I am thankful to both my employers that they provided me with a reader to help me go through the evidence and through the transcripts. I was also a very heavy user of technology once the technology explosion took hold in the 90s. And as I explained earlier, I used Braille to keep track of my notes and to keep, for purposes of writing briefs and arguments and doing client interviews. So all of those things helped me. And as I went through my career, I would gain the confidence of my supervisors and of the judges.
See, I'm glad you mentioned about your usage of Braille on your job, because of the fact that it's I read the Braille Monitor, and I've been a member of the NFB for a long time. Actually had read the Braille Monitor long before I ever joined the NFB, and I have to tell you, really, the situation is that the Braille, I've read a lot about lawsuits that the NFB has filed against educational municipalities because blind children were denied Braille instruction. And, viewing audience, if you know people in the educational field, take heart in what it is you just heard, that this lady here, who had been an attorney, who is now retired, used Braille on her job. And I do believe that Mark Maurer had mentioned that of the 70%, of the 30% of blind people who are employed, 90% of us use Braille on our jobs.
That is correct. And let me just say, one of the things that we do here in Illinois, we have an advocacy committee, and so one of our biggest things is to help parents of blind children during the IEP process. That's the individualized educational plan. And one of the things that we do is to, when a school district is trying to say that, well, your child can see, we help them. We help them structure an argument and make sure that the child has everything, including Braille and mobility.
Yes, on that note, we need to close. My name is Kenneth Borst, and thank you for watching.